Welcome to Cafecito with Rosie on air. Well, many of you have been telling me that it's not season 2 anymore. It's actually season 3. Thank you so much for that reminder. But yes, it is season 3 because we now are in a third time that we are doing this. And I am blessed and happy to be able to have my followers coming and just keeping me accountable and letting me know when things are not being done correctly. So yes, thank you to many of you for reminding me that it is season 3. And you are welcome to my show where I showcase friends of mine that have been doing amazing things for our community, and they are leaders with a servant heart. And today I have my friend Steve Zochowski that we met at the Chamber of Commerce. Steve, thank you so much for being here today. And tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and how you help the community.
My name is Steve Zochowski, and I'm an author. And part of the reason I became an author is in 2000, I had a kidney transplant. And I've lived for 24 years with kidney disease, and I wanted to explain to the world how you can overcome struggles during a lifelong illness.
Yes. And thinking, I was blessed to read your latest book. You gifted me with a copy, and of course I took advantage of that and read that. And from what I understand, your sister donated the kidney to you.
That is correct. My sister Helen gave me a kidney. She's my older sister.
Okay.
And she's doing well.
Good.
Still.
And one of the things you and I were talking about is about how no matter how much money in the world you have, the one thing you cannot buy is time and health. And people, especially if you are a business owner, you keep putting health, I don't need it. You feel that you will live forever, or that you're invincible. But your situation happened that it just happened from one day to another one. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. I was in my mid-30s, and one day I came home from work, and I was working out in the yard. I enjoyed doing things like cutting trees and using a chainsaw and chopping wood. We heated our house with wood, and I was extremely tired that afternoon. And I came into the house and I told my wife, man, I'm out of shape. I can't do what I used to do.
Right.
And come to find out, a few days later, I was in the hospital and I had been diagnosed with end-stage renal disease.
Yeah.
So it was one day to the next, it seemed.
Right.
And the next 5 years was a roller coaster of all kinds of emotions and physical struggles and medical challenges.
Right. And you had to have dialysis. So maybe, that might be something that you can explain, because a lot of people, they take the kidney for granted, right? But kidney is a major organ that works with everything else in your body. So tell us especially what happens when dialysis is being done for you.
Your kidney is a filter for your body. It filters all your blood. So everything that we consume, our blood runs it through our body, and then it goes through the kidney, and that filters on any of the impurities out, and then it goes from your kidney to your bladder, and you excrete it. The fact is, you can't live without a kidney. So if their kidneys fail, dialysis takes the place of that, and to do dialysis, they either put a fistula in your arm. Typically, they'll start out with a catheter that's in your jugular, and they draw the blood out of your body naturally, and it goes through a filter, and then it goes back into your body purified.
Right.
And one of the things that most people that are on dialysis spend 4 hours a day, 3 days a week in order to survive.
Right. And you'd mentioned something about the dialysis centers. So, and this is where I want to bring awareness to our viewers today, because you see a lot of those dialysis centers, and there's not like this 1 or 2 beds. There's just many beds in there,
Dozens.
many people going in and out, and constantly it's just a revolving door.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your experience on that and what happens after you have that treatment.
Well, after the treatment, after 4 hours of filtering your blood, you can be extremely fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
My wife would come with me and wait while I was dialyzed,
Mm-hmm.
and then she would drive me home and usually had some food for me to eat, which
Mm-hmm.
was very nice. I was always
Mm-hmm.
famished
Right.
after that because it takes not only just the impurities out of your body, but any nutrients and all those things that your blood carries through your body. Mm-hmm. And I would go home, take a shower, get ready for work, and go to work. I worked full time at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't drive the 45-minute drive to my place of work at the time, which was a car dealership.
Uh-huh.
I would have to stop along the side of the road and take a nap on the way.
Okay. Yeah. So you adapted. But like one of the things that I ask is many people are happening, and then as one leaves, then another one comes in, and
Yeah, there was about 60 dialysis units in the room where I was dialyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was packed.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 3 shifts every day of the week 6 days a week that they had in there. So if it's full at all times, that's 180 on just 3 days a week. There's a lot of people on dialysis.
Yes, yes. And now you are looking into helping others with a situation like that, because it's not only what happens prior to your transplant, then finding the match, which blessed to you, you had your sister, mm-hmm. and then afterwards. And you mentioned also what Medicare covers and what Medicare doesn't cover and things like that, and the long-term repercussions that comes with that, right? Because now you have to take the anti-rejection drugs. So tell me a little bit about that part of it, what happened prior, during, and after.
There's only a couple of things that Medicare will actually come in, step up, and become your insurance carrier. Mm-hmm. And one of them is end-stage renal disease, mm-hmm. the other being retirement or disability. Mm-hmm. And as long as you're on dialysis, you'll have Social Security, depending on your age, of course, mm-hmm. and you'll have Social Security as your secondary carrier. And after a transplant in 36 months...
Well, not Social Security, Medicare?
Medicare, mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, after 36 months after a transplant, they will no longer pay for the anti-rejection medications.
Okay.
After 18 months, they no longer cover any medical costs.
Okay.
After a transplant. So you have to make sure that you have a insurance of some sort. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty young at the time. I was in my 30s. So I had to plan ahead. Mm-hmm. And it gave a little time to get that done, have a policy in order to cover some of the medical costs. Right.
And see, right now with the Medicare arena, we do have a couple of players on the Medicare Advantage world that specialize on end-stage kidney disease. Yeah. And that's one of those things that as a Medicare broker, I come to people's homes to see what they need, because one thing that I found out is a dialysis patient, the cost of that is about $125,000 a year, which with Medicare only pays about 80% of that. So 20% of that, the client or the patient is responsible for up to their maximum out of pocket. But if they just have Medicare, now you are responsible for 20% of that amount of money. So it is imperative, like you said, for you to make sure that you explore your options, because there are options out there that my team and I can help you overcome. But you also have a couple of more books that you have written about for that same situation.
Correct.
And tell us about what happens after the transplant and getting back into the normal things and trying to get your life set back.
our lives aren't normal regardless.
Right?
So the challenge after that was staying in a position where my coverage, my medical coverage, would continue to pay for the majority of the cost. And that wasn't the case because I used so much of the coverage during the dialysis point and through the transplant. There was so many medical bills that my insurance actually maxed out.
Oh, wow.
So I had to leave that position and go to another position somewhere else so that I could pick up more healthcare coverage. And the costs, no matter what policy you may have, could be absorbent.
Oh, wow. Wow. And that's the part that you want to help people, because again, one thing, nobody likes to talk about insurance, right? But when you're sick, you want to make sure it works. And there's different ways and avenues that people, I don't say they can play around with it, but there's programs and things that people can apply for. But sometimes when you get that diagnosed, you feel like there's no hope, right? There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
And
so
where
the
do I
emotions.
turn? Yeah, that's the hard thing for me was, who do I turn to? Where do I find help? And there's a lot of organizations in the kidney disease arena that are available for assistance. And another thing that you need to do is as a patient, regardless of the disease, is to find alternative avenues to help you plan your days and weeks and months.
Called Separate Hills, which I call a small town with a big city feel with a small town charm. And we are working really hard. All the city councilmen and our mayor and councilwomen are keeping that integrity of the town being a small town. So we do have a Main Street, and Main Street works together with the Chamber of Commerce. They have the famous event called Pigs in the Hills that usually happens in February, where we get thousands and thousands of people through our little town to visit and find out. We actually had a barbecue contest the last time. And the big attraction is that they had the children's grilling contest. So when Steve talks about being part of the community, or Steven talks about being part of the community, you really in Separate Hills, that is, if you're not involved, engaged, or getting involved, then it's like you're an outsider. But there is so much opportunity in our little town to get together. They're always needing, there's always nice people that they will tell you hi and hello, and they're not stuck up and not talking to you. The funny part is that most of them are very passionate about what they speak. So when they speak a lot, and you have to be able to say, thank you so much, that was wonderful information, and try to walk away. But if you guys are interested, the Separate Hills Chamber of Commerce hold their monthly breakfast the first Thursday of every month, and it starts at 7 o'clock in the morning in the Golden Corral in Separate Hills. So big shout out to the Separate Hills Chamber of Commerce, which soon will merge with the Dade City Chamber of Commerce, and is going to be called the East Pasco Chamber of Commerce. So looking forward to that merger and what the new opportunities are for our business owners. So tell me about your other business, the one that you help business owners acquire capital. Tell me a little bit about that.
I represent a company that's called Mom and Pop Business Funding, and we supply unsecured working capital for small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, up to $1 million, and we can usually fund a loan in 2 to 3 days.
Oh.
So it's there. Everybody needs money, of course, and a lot of businesses have a struggle getting it in time of need, because banks take months and tons of paperwork to get it done. And we offer it with a simple one-page application and 6 months business bank statements. And we can have underwriting look at it and get an approval in a very quick time. And the turnaround for funding it into your bank account is actually can happen on the same day sometimes.
How did you end up doing that job? How did you came across that?
Well, one of the other books I wrote is called Honoring God with Your Finances. And I believe that God led me to this place to do, and I started doing it over a year ago, and I enjoy it very much because I get to know small businesses.
Yes, so a small business, and I always say this is so important for our country. 70% of the economy of the United States is run by small businesses. And sometimes the small businesses might not have all the pedigree that most of the banks require for you to have. So I remember my first experience to try to get a $5,000 loan. I always tell people this. I actually got approved by the SBA, and it was 80%, and then 85%, and 15% was secured by SBA, but I needed to get it from a local bank. Well, I went to every single local bank, and for $5,000, that was maybe $1,500 or $1,000, and I couldn't get any of the local banks to give me that extra 15%. Remember, I had already got the 85% approved. But it's because that's when I understood that every single bank does not have a way of really doing the qualifying for the loan. So it's usually who you know, and they, like you said, all this paperwork. And no matter what I did, because my business, I think I was only in the business for about 3 years at that time. There was not a way for me to be able to secure a $5,000 loan at that time.
Yeah, and that's not unusual. The fact is, since COVID, it's become more apparent that you see banks failing. There's lots of unusual things happening in the economy today. So it's much more necessary for an alternate to find funding if you have an emergency, especially in your business.
Right. And you brought something, and this is a good point that I always like to mention, right? So many business owners that I have interviewed here, they have one thing in common, and that is that we surrender our lives to God, because owning your business takes courage, but at the same time takes that inner strength of understanding what you are called to be, who you are created, and what purpose you were created for. And that's the creator that thought about, hey, this person needs to do this, and I'm going to perfectly and uniquely and authentically going to create this person just for that purpose. And owning a business sometimes is doing the same thing every single day. And sometimes you don't get the response that you expect right away.
Yeah.
But it's that discipline to continue to go. And where do you get that strength and energy and that inspired to continue to go and do it? So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think many business owners sometimes are in the fence also. I remember my first business name was Good Faith Insurance Services, and one of the person that I was branding my insurance business with said, well, that's going to mean that you're going to leave half of the people that they're not Christians away. And I was kind of challenged on should I keep that name or not. But that was his perception, because he thought that the name of my business, Good Faith Insurance Services, was because of my faith. But the reality is, in an insurance clause, in an insurance deal, there is a clause that is the good faith clause. And actually, my brother-in-law and I founded the business, and he came up with the name, and I thought it was really cool, but it had nothing to do with our background and our Christianity. But I said to him, and I put my foot down. I remember him challenged me, and I said, well, this is who I am, authentically, raw, and people that they're going to come to my business are going to come to my business. I'm not going to be the one that is going to deny my faith. And I haven't been in the red. People continue to come to my business. People continue to say, Rosie's a Christian, which sometimes is funny, but I don't tell people, hey, I'm Rosie Coulson, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
But it's more than walking the walk than talking the talk. I think a lot of people understand that, and that's what they feel. Rosie's she's not shy of talking about her Christianity. And how does that have empowered you? Because I know going through
end-stage renal disease, dialysis, transplant, and the struggles with all the ups and downs throughout life would have been extremely difficult without my faith in God. Because of my faith in God, I have confidence because He gives me confidence.
Right.
And I rely on my knowledge of God through the Bible to help me, guide me through the ebbs and flows of life.
Right. And I think you're the one of those things that I appreciate about your book is you have a lot of Bible verses that goes with the things that happen to you or the ongoing, and that you are becoming also a mentor for other men, which I think that's one of the things where Christianity kind of lost the way a little bit, because the world kind of came into men cannot be chevalier anymore. Men should not be women can do as much as a man can, which we can, but we were not created for that. Yeah. That's why a lot of people talk about the masculinity energy and the femininity energy. But for us, it's, the covering of God. And I always tell people, without my husband has been such a wonderful husband. We're going to be together now, I believe, 19 years. Yeah. Yes, 19 years. But he spoiled me so much. I feel like a little brat, and not brat in a bad way, but a spoiled little child. But he has made helped me find myself and who I am. And then I feel men get chastised for that, but that's what we need in society, because men are created to protect and provide, and those being a mentor for other young men and people, it's important. It's important.
Yeah. And I tried to get that point across in my writing so that people could see that it's not just the facts of the things that I know, but there's things that God writes in His Word that help me through my life, and that can help others too.
Yeah. And let's talk about your wonderful wife. You keep mentioning
Georgiana.
You keep on mentioning her in your book over and over, because she has been your life partner through this thing.
29 years.
Yes. So tell me, I mean, and I believe this is your second marriage?
Or was my first.
The first marriage.
Yep.
Okay. And tell me about, how you guys met, and, your love story.
We met through a mutual friend. I had owned a pickup, and a friend of mine had a bale of hay, and she had grass that needed planted after some construction at her house. And the two of them knew each other. And I took that straw bale over there and helped her seed her yard. And I still have a picture of us leaning on the back of that truck from that day. And we've been together ever since.
Oh, wow. And it's amazing when you find that person. It's just, there's nothing that you can describe or that you can compare it to. It's like somebody that you can be vulnerable, you can be yourself, and they love you through thick and thin. They're not going to leave you no matter how ugly things get. And it's that covenant that you make to each other.
That's correct. And the life's not a bed of roses. So, of course, you have ups and downs, but we have a solid foundation on the Word of God that we started our marriage with, and throughout our marriage and our lives together, that's been our foundation.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I'm not saying that everything works that way. I'm not want people to think, oh, Rosie's preaching in her show, but it is my show, and I can preach if I want to. But it's that covenant of saying, I'm gonna stick with this person, because the biggest lie I believe in counseling of marriages is that it's a 50-50 deal, because this person is human like you are,
Yeah.
and they're not giving 50-50 all the time. You have to give 110% without expecting anything in return. That's what marriage is all about, that unconditional love no matter what. I have friends that perhaps they are Christians, their husbands are not, and through their whole marriages they have been a wife that obeys the husband. And when I say obey, might come out like chauvinistic or old school, but that they accepted the covenant, that the husband was in control, or the person that run the household. But eventually, through the years, the husband also accepts Christ, and it becomes a Christian covenant and a Christian marriage. But there's other ones that no, and through their life, they honor their husbands, because it's not about the husband's attitude or faith. It's about them as being followers of Christ, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So there was another thing in that got my attention in the book, and it was that you and Georgiana decided not to have any children, because she also is a school teacher. And for whoever is watching this, that might be something that you might want to share. How do you guys overcame the stigma, perhaps, that some society says, if you get married, you have to have children, you have to do this, you have to do that?
When the two of us met, she had a babysitting business in her house, and at any one time there could be as many as 15 children there. When they got off the bus and things, there would be a gaggle of children at her place. And she's always had that business until the last, retirement years, now
Right.
close to retirement. But she became a nanny after that. And so we always had other people's children that we helped raise throughout our lives. So it kind of took away the pain of not having our own.
Right. Well, and I think with this one, we're going to go ahead and this will be our last topic. And I know you talk about finances and how important it is. And that was showed to you by God. God enlightened you on that. Because a lot of people also have the confusion that if you are a Christ follower, you also should be poor. You should not talk about money, because, money is evil, which is in the Bible. People tell you that money is evil, but it perhaps says it's the love of money that is evil and makes you do things that you're not supposed to. So tell me a little bit about that. How will you what experience will you share with people about how important is being aware of your finances?
Throughout the years, we've been at a point where we're debt-free for quite a few years. And it's been a struggle to stay on top of things because of the medical costs. And that's ongoing. I'll take immunosuppressant medications the rest of my life. And I thank the Lord that I've got 24 years of taking these medications and that they're available. For some unknown reason, when we moved to Florida 5 years ago, I take about a third of the amount of medications I took before we moved here. So it must be the tropical weather.
Yeah, moved to Florida, the weather.
Yeah. So, but the cost is still outrageous. And insurance changes over time too. So you pay more for coverage, but you get less coverage.
Right.
And I still work for a trucking firm that I've worked for from home way before it was cool. When COVID came out, everybody went home to work. Right. Well, I had been doing it for 8 years before that, and during that time, I have to keep that job because I don't have Social Security or Medicare to have the insurance coverage because it's so expensive. If I don't have someone paying for part of it, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Right. And see, and this is so important because one of the things that my husband and I did at the very beginning of our marriage is combine our finances, right? So here I am, I was a single mom, I run my household by myself. My husband was a single man, same thing. But then we came together and we brought our finances together. And I believe the biggest, the number one reason why divorces happens is finances. We have learned to notice that my husband and I are emotional spenders. So if we hold on and we don't buy anything, and then we said, oh, we just deserve it, and then we go out and purchase all these things. So we have created ways to be able to hold each other accountable, because at the end of the day, we like our lifestyle, which is I call myself a little semi-retired. I love what I do, so I don't call it job, helping others with their Medicare options. And I do get to work from home. And now I'm leading a group of servant leaders in the community that want to do the same. So my husband is at home with me, and he goes out if he wants to. If he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to work. But finances are one of those things that they need to be nipped in the bud very early, and you have to be on top of it. And one of the biggest myths is people says, well, I don't have any money, so I should not have a budget. What your opinion on that is?
We had a rule after I got sick that if you needed something or desired something and it was more than $100, you would talk to your spouse about it. So Georgiana had that rule, and we kept that for years. Well, today it's about $1,000 because everything's so much more expensive.
Right.
But it's good to have boundaries in your budget so that you don't overspend, and you should have boundaries in your budget so that you know where you're spending too much or too little.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. Find out where is it that if you're not holding yourself accountable with the budget, you can actually see there where the money is going to. When you hold that, you say, hey, you know what? We eating out a lot. That is our where our money is going. So you can make adjustment. That doesn't mean you're not gonna eat out a lot anymore, but you might just reduce it to not eating every night out, and if not, maybe once or twice a week, or share a meal instead of buying a meal each. Some of those things that it would just make sense for you as a couple. But Stephen, thank you so much for being in my show today. I really do appreciate it. How can people find you? Where is your website or your phone number, or how can people get a hold of you?
I have several websites. The easiest place to find everything that I'm involved in is on Linktree.
Okay.
So it's linktr.ee/ and then my name, Steve Zochowski.
Zochowski, perfect. And what's your phone number?
It's 813-701-8292.
Awesome. And we will put those things at the bottom of the show so you guys can get a hold of Stephen. And if you're looking for some information on how to overcome any of life challenges, perhaps you are going through a transplant right now, Steve will be more than happy to help you through this process. And my friends, I thank you so much for always watching, for always continuing to support Rosie Paulson and Rosie Paulson Enterprises. A big shout out to 24M Studios. Sergio Nandi, you rock. And stay pure, stay positive, and stay inspired, my friends. Ciao.